Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 13th of April, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, Shapella is now live on the Ethereum network, as we all know. The upgrade seemed to have gone through quite smoothly. I think there were only two issues, really. One of them was with Lighthouse, the Lighthouse client, where it basically maxed out your CPU usage, leading to a crash in the client, I believe, or at least missed attestations and block proposals. So there is a new update out to address that. So if you're a Lighthouse user, go check that out. And I believe there was an issue with the Prysm client. It wouldn't propose MEV boosted blocks for some reason, and there is also an update out for that as well. So if you run either Prysm or Lighthouse, then be sure to update those clients there. But other than that, it seems to have gone through very, very smoothly, and really it seems to have played out exactly as I believe myself and a bunch of other people have predicted. Now, what I mean by this is that obviously, at time, I guess, of recording of this video, the ETH price has gone up since withdrawals were enabled, and most of the withdrawals that are actually happening from Kraken. So we know that Kraken needs to, or is being forced to unstake all of their US-based ETH that they've staked, right? So there is no way around that for them because they are legally required to do that. And if you go to this dashboard here on rated.network, you can actually go to the network overview tab and then go down, and you can see the exit queue capacity and what's taking up capacity. And then you can click the exit queue distribution pie chart here, and you can actually see that Kraken accounts for 80% of the exit queue right now. So really, the majority of the withdrawals are only happening from Kraken. They're not happening from anywhere else, really. I know that Lido hasn't enabled withdrawals yet. They're going to do that in around a month, I believe. But you know, if we just look at this, right, solo stakers aren't really withdrawing, and the Kraken withdrawals doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be sold, that ETH, because I'm sure a lot of those people will want to keep staking, so they'll just go to another service to stake. And that's why you can actually see right now in the activation queue distribution or the deposit queue distribution what it looks like. So you can see people are going into a bunch of different staking services here. Obviously, like there's a big chunk of unidentified validators. Hopefully a lot of that is solo validators, of course. Then you have Lido, Rocket Pool, Ledger Live, OKX, and a bunch of others here. So that's a really cool dashboard, which of course I'll link in the YouTube description for you to check out. But overall, a very successful shipping of a new major upgrade, a new major feature to the Ethereum network. This completes the 1.0 version of Ethereum Proof of Stake. Obviously, I've talked about how I think there's going to be a lot of other upgrades coming to Proof of Stake over time, and I actually spoke about this on the Bankless episode I did just today with Justin Drake and Tim Byko, where I said that we're almost kind of looking at a 2.0 for Ethereum Proof of Stake at this point, where 1.0 would work fine, and the network would be fine if we just stayed on as it is today, but there are a lot of upgrades that people would like to see put onto the network that's got to do with Proof of Stake, and I've talked about these in the past: single slot finality and secret leader election, PBS, things like that. They're all critical in my mind. I don't think they're nice to haves. I think they're must haves. So I believe that they will eventually come to the network. So, you know, if it's not going to all come at once, but I do believe that while we've shipped 1.0 of Proof of Stake, there is still a lot of improvements to come for Proof of Stake Ethereum. So we've got that to look forward to, of course. Now, I put out this tweet today where I basically said, now that Shapella is shipped, you know, what's next? Well, obviously, the next major feature add is EIP 4844, which is coming as part of the Denkun network upgrade, hopefully by the end of this year. And that's coming with a bunch of other EIPs as well, such as the EOF EIP that I've spoken about before, and a few others. You can go check that out on GitHub. And then, yeah, I've spoken about things that are coming next year as well, such as hopefully Vertical Trees and possibly PBS. I don't know if PBS is that close, but we'll see, right? But work obviously continues on all of this, and there is no slowing the Ethereum train, basically. In other staking-related news or Shapella-related news, you can see here that Etherscan now displays withdrawals. So you can see in their thread here how to check out the Big and Chain withdrawals page to see all the withdrawals happening, both rewards and the 32 ETH stake, obviously, and the number of withdrawals in each block are shown on each block page as well, which is very cool. Coinbase announced that their unstaking is now enabled on their website, so if you have a Coinbase account, and you want to, I mean, there's actually a couple of ways to play this. So it's funny because if you're staked with Coinbase, you can exit right now, but there is actually an arbitrage opportunity that I don't think a lot of people know about, where people are still selling CB ETH into the market rather than going through Coinbase. And I think this may be for a few reasons. One, some people just don't understand that they can actually go directly to Coinbase and unstake this ETH and not have to take any kind of discount. But two, I think that there are probably people that don't have a Coinbase account and can't actually exit via Coinbase, so they have to go through the secondary market. And that presents an arbitrage opportunity where, say, the CB ETH token is at a 1% discount to the fair value. You can buy CB ETH if you have a Coinbase account and then send it to Coinbase and redeem it for actual ETH from the beacon chain and make an instant 1% profit from that arbitrage opportunity there. So that exists, and that can actually be done, I believe, still right now. But for those of the people that did this before Shapella went live, where basically you bought CB ETH at what, 94, I think it was 0.94 for a little while there, was at a pretty steep discount. You pretty much made like 6% or more in a matter of a few months for a very low risk strategy, because now you can just go redeem it for actual ETH staked in the beacon chain, which is just incredible, right? And I mentioned this arbitrage opportunity before. It wasn't just CB ETH, it was ST ETH. Obviously, RETH was the other way around, where essentially you had to spin up mini pools in order to take advantage of that premium because it wasn't trading at a discount. But yeah, now you can do the whole loop with Coinbase, and you can do the whole loop with everything now, except Lido. Unfortunately, I'm actually really upset and disappointed that Lido is going to be at least a whole month from now before they enable withdrawals. And I'm not going to say that they've done this on purpose or anything, or there's any malice behind this, but I do kind of find it a bit like weird that they knew about Shapella for so long and they're like a month behind. I understand that they obviously are shipping withdrawals as part of their V2 upgrade, and they're auditing that and things like that. But still, I don't know. I don't like it because it kind of delays that great reshuffling event that I've been talking about. I think obviously the great reshuffling event starts at the block that Shapella went live, but it kind of delays it, right? And a month is actually a long time in crypto, as we all know. So is the same momentum going to be there in a month? Who knows, right? I think it will be, but yeah, just a bit disappointed by that action there from Lido. But Coinbase has their staking withdrawals enabled. Kraken obviously does, and is force unstaking every US-based investor. And I've actually spoken to two of them. One of them is going to be going to solo staking. So that's a pretty big plus, right? That they're moving from Kraken to solo staking. And the other one is still deciding, but I think they want to go with Rocket Pool. So I mean, this is really positive. That's only two examples of, or two people out of probably thousands. But even if 10 or 20% of those people go to a decentralized service or do solo staking, I think that's much better than what we've had now, right? With it all being staked with a centralized exchange. So it's cool to see that there. And speaking of dashboards, there's two other dashboards here that we'll link in the YouTube description below, where you can monitor a bunch of different things around Shapella. Obviously, you want to monitor the deposit and withdrawal queue. I don't know if this data is accurate because right now it says that there's more deposits going in than withdrawals right now. I don't know if that's accurate. I haven't double checked that, but that's actually pretty wild to see if that is true. And then there's a bunch of other metrics that you can view here as well on the Nansen dashboard, which I'll link in the YouTube description below for you to do so. And there's also this dashboard from the Token Unlocks website, which is pretty good as well. I don't like that they are displaying pending withdrawals as cumulative of both the staked ETH that's being withdrawn and the rewards, the consensus layer rewards, but you can actually hover over it and see here how many partial withdrawals there are versus full withdrawals. There's only 17,000 full withdrawals worth of ETH being withdrawn, whereas partial withdrawals is 280,000 ETH. Now, we all know that partial withdrawals are automatic. Within 4 to 5 days from when Shapella went live, all of that accumulated consensus layer rewards, which is actually, I think it's 1.1 or 1.2 million ETH, will be paid out to everyone who has the relevant withdrawal key set. And actually, I think only 55% of the network has actually converted their withdrawal keys from 0x00 to 0x01. So there will be a large chunk that actually isn't paid out. Now, who knows why they haven't enabled this yet? They're probably staking with a service that hasn't done this yet, or maybe they just haven't gotten around to it. But that is also something to consider as well, that not everyone can unstake because they haven't converted their withdrawal credentials just yet. But anyway, I'm going to link all those dashboards in the YouTube description for you to check out. But just overall, a very successful hard fork. Overall, it's played out exactly as I think a lot of the people who are actually paying attention said it would play out. Obviously, it's only a day since the hard fork happened, not even a day yet, right? And price action tends to whipsaw and tends to kind of like chop everyone up, especially in events like this. But the fact that like ETH has gone up quite a bit, even leading up to Shapella, even though everyone was saying that there was going to be a massive kind of unlock of ETH and there was going to be a massive dump because of this, I've explained it numerous times on the refill before, and there's that 7-minute video clip that I've shared on Twitter with me explaining it as well. It didn't make any logical sense. It did not make any fundamental sense from a fundamentals point of view, and it just wasn't going to happen as all the bears thought it would. Not to say that the price can't go down from here. I mean, sure, obviously it can, but I think that even though it's only been a little bit of time, the market has definitively shown that Shapella was not a bearish event for Ethereum. Anyway, going to move on from that. Actually, I did put a tweet out before saying that anyone who's watched the refuel for, I guess, the last few months, probably even more than that, 6 to 12 months at this point, knew that Shapella wasn't going to be bearish for ETH. And I said that all people have to do is watch or listen to my show, my 30-minute show every weekday, which is completely free. I mean, you guys know this, but if your friends are, if you've got friends that want to get into Ethereum or crypto, you can reference this show and say it's free. There's no ads, no monetization. I'm not trying to sell you anything, right? And then you'd be ahead of 99% of people in crypto by just listening to the show. And as I said, I'm preaching to the choir here, quite literally. You guys already know this, but for anyone that you talk to, I just tell them, just honestly, like, I'm not trying to pump myself up or anything like that, but at the end of the day, there's so much bad information out there when it comes to crypto, especially when it comes to Ethereum, and I believe I'm one of the only consistently media outlets out there that actually puts out the good information. Obviously, there are a bunch of others. Bankless is the obvious example here, but there are others out there, and there are smaller communities as well that specialize in things like ETHstaker, for example. But I think generally, it's on us to save the newer people to the ecosystem from falling down the rabbit hole of a BitBoy or something else, right? We don't want them going down those rabbit holes. We want them getting the right information and being able to form their own opinions based on that correct information. Anyway, enough about that. Moving on to a bunch of other things that happened in the last 24 hours. So Tony from the MEVBoost.pix website has put out a screenshot here, and he captioned it, or a picture here, and he captioned it saying, in the past 6 months, validators received the same average execution layer rewards. This would probably not be possible if validators had to engage in centralizing MEV games, the success story of PBS so far. Now, I remember I explained this, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, or the refill before, where I basically said that we do have PBS right now, Proposed Builder Separation in Ethereum right now, because we have the MEV Boost networks, which acts as that separation. That's happening. And I highlighted this exact chart here yesterday or the refill before, but it was only on a 1-week time frame. And I did say that on the longer time frames, I suspected that the execution layer rewards or the MEV boost payments rewards would pretty much look the same across all of these staking providers, and that's exactly what we see here. There are differences here and there, right? But mostly it's the same. It's same on average, right? Which is incredibly cool because, as Tony says here, this probably would not have happened if it wasn't for MEV boost. Now, I know MEV boost has come under a lot of scrutiny for a bunch of different reasons, but I think until we have in-protocol PBS, it is a necessary evil. There are issues with it. It leads to centralization in other ways. It leads to censorship, as we've seen, but we've even rectified that, right? But generally, and it leads to bugs because. So what happens is because 90% or on average 90% of blocks are being outsourced to MEV Boost, and MEV Boost as a software is not part of the main track of Ethereum core development, there are sometimes critical bugs that happen, like with the Prysm client, where there will be an issue with the Prysm client talking to the MEV Boost software because it is a sidecar software. It is not part of the core protocol. So it's actually hard to test for these things. Now, within protocol PBS, it would be a lot easier. And MEV Boost as a software will go a long way to informing us how to do PBS in a proper, secure, safe, resilient way, which is obviously also very exciting. But great to see that my thesis from just seeing the weekly chart last time plays out over the last 6 months, and I think this is something to show people when they say, "Oh, look at Lido or look at Coinbase getting all the big MEV boost payments out. I should stake with them." Well, over a long enough time frame, and this isn't that long, 6 months, it's basically averages out to the same thing. And even as I would imagine, even as a solo staker, it would, as long as you have high effectiveness on the network and you aren't missing block proposals, you should be the same as well. So I think it's a bit of a misconception out there that the bigger staking providers will give you more APY. I really do think over the 6, 12, 18-month timeframes and longer, you're going to be averaging the same rewards as long as you have that steady effectiveness. You know, we'd probably want an effectiveness of at least 95% or more, and you don't want to be missing any block proposals. Obviously, as a solo staker on your own hardware, that could be more difficult to achieve because you have to make sure that you've got your own redundancy set up, such as a UPS, uninterruptible power supply, and a backup internet connection and things like that. And I totally understand that obviously those kind of things are quite hard for many people to achieve. But still, I think it just speaks to the fact that no matter what staking service you go with, your MEV boost payments should average out to the same across all of them. All right, yeah, this is the Prysm client, the link here that I'll link in the YouTube description below that you should upgrade to. As I mentioned before, if there was a critical bug with it talking to MEV boost that would actually lead to missed block proposals. So definitely go check this out if you haven't yet. So there is a bit of a meme right now about kind of changing the terminology of danksharding, because danksharding, as Ansgar says here, he likes danksharding as a meme, but he thinks it was a mistake to stick with sharding as we pivoted away from execution sharding. What we are doing now is data availability scaling, and by not calling it that, many people still think enshrined sharding execution is on the roadmap. I agree with this. I think we need better memes here. So there was a bit of a thread here of people coming up with different memes. This person said dank scaling, and then Ansgar said dank scaling the blob space, and then Tim Byko said dank scaling the blob space with the little period, little o, and capital O here to represent the different blob sizes. I think dank scaling and blob space is pretty funny from a meme perspective, but it's also going to confuse people again. I think danksharding and EIP4844 are going to be quite sticky, but it is accurate to say that it's not really sharding as originally envisioned, and it will confuse people. So dank scaling and blob space will probably be the memes that you see thrown around from now on. So I just wanted to say that, and I wanted to explain what they were so that you weren't confused when you saw this new terminology floating around on Twitter. All right, so Dan Romero from Farcaster has teased a new feature on Farcaster called Login with Farcaster. So what Login with Farcaster comes with is an OAuth-like flow to log in to other Farcaster apps, direct relationship between developer and user, 100% user-controlled, assigning key pair is off-chain, and uses Farcaster hubs. And then here's a video of how it works on Jam here. This is pretty cool because obviously you're already using an Ethereum account to sign into Farcaster, and then you can take that a step further where you're using the actual Farcaster login or app login to connect to different apps within the kind of Farcaster ecosystem, which I think is very, very cool. And as I've said before, Farcaster remains pretty much like the most exciting decentralized social media app that I've seen. I'm trying to use it more. I am using it more as a lurker lately. I haven't really posted on there that much yet. It's very hard for me to switch off Twitter. I think I'm going to have to try and use both of them at the same time and see which one I like more and see which one I spend time on more just naturally without having to force myself to do things. But I still have, and on that note as well, I still have a bunch of invites for Farcaster if people want to reach out to me. I'm going to look here. I have 65 invites left. I can see it right here on my screen. So feel free to just DM me. It should come up as a request, or just add me as a friend and I'll know why you've added me as a friend, and I'll send out an invite to you. It's pretty easy. I just need your email. So yeah, if you're DMing me or kind of friend requesting me about a Farcaster invite, just send a message to me saying, hey, I would like a Farcaster invite, and send me your email, just so it's a quick process, and I'll get the invite sent to you when I can there. So as I said, I have 65 invites left. First come, first serve, obviously, but they are there for you to grab onto. All right, so Marissa Tashman-Kopel here from the Blockchain Association announced today that the Blockchain Association and DeFi Education Fund filed an amicus brief in the Van Loon versus Treasury kind of suit here, fighting OFAC's unlawful sanctions of the Tornado Cash software. OFAC's decision raises serious regulatory and constitutional questions, inhibiting the rights of many Americans. And then she continues by saying, we argue that Tornado Cash is simply a tool, as it would be unthinkable for OFAC to prohibit Americans from using tools like the internet or a car, rather than punishing the bad actors themselves. OFAC's sanctions of Tornado Cash are unprecedented. And there's a bunch of more stuff in the thread here that you can go check out for yourself. But just reminding you guys here that there are active lawsuits against OFAC right now, against the Treasury Department, I should say, from different parties. There's one from Coinbase. There's one from a bunch of different Ethereum community members. There's one from David Hoffman. I don't know. I think some of these overlap. I think there's only 2 right now. There might be 3. I can't remember exactly. But there are a bunch going on right now. And they're still in the works. Obviously, the wheels of justice or the law generally moves quite slowly, so you're not going to see anything major from this for quite a while, but it's good that people are fighting back, and it's good that not only individuals are fighting back, but well-respected institutions like Coinbase are fighting back as well. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on that. This will be linked in the YouTube description below for you to check out. Right, an update from L2Beat here today. So they have released something called Earl, which is a modern assertion library for TypeScript. So this is obviously one of the things for developers to check out. Obviously, if you're not a developer, this probably won't mean much to you, but you can head to earl.fun to check out what this is all about, along with a bunch of documentation and examples and things like that for you to get started with. Just figured I'd shout that out for people out there, or the developers among us, to check out, because I thought it was quite interesting. So yeah, I'll link this in the YouTube description for you to check out. And rounding off the updates was just that Bankless episode that I was talking about. It ended up not being a live stream because unfortunately, for some reason, the software wasn't working correctly, so we just ended up recording it offline, and then it was posted as a normal Bankless episode. So if you haven't checked out that one yet, I highly, highly recommend doing so. Not because I was on it, but because Tim Biko and Justin Drake were on it. Honestly, those 2 guys make me feel so inferior in the best way possible. There is so much alpha packed in this episode that you may not be aware of. Justin Drake dropped some really big alpha bombs in there, so you should definitely go check out this episode if you haven't yet. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, just like yesterday, I have left a bit of extra space here at the end of the episode to talk more broadly about what I was talking about at the start of the episode, which was obviously Shapella. Now that Shapella's live, everyone is asking what's next. And I think that I shouldn't say everyone outside of the Ethereum ecosystem is asking what's next, because everyone inside the Ethereum ecosystem already knows what's next. We know that ERP 4844 is coming soon. We know that we have vertical trees to look forward to and PBS to look forward to and all these other really cool stuff to look forward to, because we're familiar with the general Ethereum roadmap. But I think it's on us going forward to make sure that we keep memeing these things into reality, because memes are the best way to disseminate information amongst a wide group of people on the internet, and even in real life these days. So I think that with 4844, we definitely want to keep talking about things like, the terminology like danksharding and blob space and stuff like that. Even if it sounds silly, even if like Bitcoin maximalists are going to make fun of us for saying it, that's good, because it's free marketing for us if they make fun of us, make fun of it. I mean, the fact that this upgrade was called Shapella, which was obviously an amalgamation of the Shanghai and Capella upgrade names for the EL and CL layers there. It was called Shapella, and people were making jokes about this. There were some people were like generating AI images of Dave Chappelle holding an ETH kind of coin in his hand, right? Because Shapella sounds like Chappelle. And some people were making jokes about how he did that skit once where he said, y'all got any more? And then there's like, y'all got any more of that ETH stake, right? So I think memeing these upgrades is the best way to make people aware of them, and the best way to keep the narrative going that Ethereum is not slowing down. It is shipping faster than it ever has before. There are major upgrades being shipped, guys. These are not small quality of life improvements. These are major things, especially 4844, especially PBS, especially vertical trees, especially things like single slot finality, all that sorts of stuff. Those are all absolutely huge upgrades. Obviously not as big as the merge, and that's totally fine, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't think there's ever going to be an upgrade as big as the merge. There are people who disagree with me on that. There are people who say full danksharding is as complex as the merge, and that's totally fine. Like I'm happy if people disagree with me on that, even if they are core developers as well and core researchers. But in terms of the scope of the upgrade, I think the merge isn't going to be beaten. But as I said, that's totally fine. There are other very exciting upgrades coming down the line. They're not too far away, and they're being worked on actively in parallel. And there is so much happening on that front. So as I said, I think it's on us to meme those things into reality. and to keep talking about these things publicly so that it remains fresh in people's minds. Now, the importance of this is twofold. One, it's for keeping Ethereum fresh in people's minds, which I don't think is hard to do because there is a million different reasons why Ethereum would be fresh in people's minds. But secondly, I think that in terms of keeping the FUD to a minimum, I guess, like dispelling FUD, and every time that we say something and it comes true, it basically takes more and more power away from these people who spread the FUD and these people who spread this misinformation. And I think Shapella is a perfect example of this. As I said early at the start of the episode, for months now, months and months and months, everyone was going on about Shapella is going to be this massive unlock of staked ETH. It's going to be uber bearish for ETH. ETH price is going to crash to zero. And this is ridiculous that there's a queue to unstake. Like they're only doing that to stem the bleeding, blah, 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 right? All this stuff that we know to be false. But the only reason we know it to be false was because people were talking about it. I went on about it for months and months and months, trying to make sure that you guys understood that Shapella was not a bearish event for Ethereum. I don't understand how people think that shipping a major upgrade is a bearish event. But anyway, right? And the broader context of the market right now as well, the market is generally bullish. So I just didn't see it as being a bearish event for Ethereum and for ETH as an asset, of course. But I think there's going to be similar kind of FUD around these sorts of things when it comes to 4844, for example. You're going to see people FUDding the fact that after a month, the blob data expires on Ethereum layer 1, and if you don't store it somewhere else, you're never going to have access to that data again. It's going to be lost basically forever. Now, people are going to FUD this. It's an easy way to fight back on this FUD. You can say to people, well, if people actually care about this data, they can just store it themselves. It's not hard to do. There's going to be plenty of services that are going to store it themselves. And anyone who doesn't actually want to use a service that's using these blob type transactions can still use normal rollups that don't use blob type transactions, that use core data and have their data stored on Ethereum forever. So there are multiple ways around this. Now, of course, these things are quite technical. They're harder to explain to the average person than someone that's in Ethereum already, because you have to add a lot of context to it. But I think it's still very important to explain these things and explain the nuance behind them, rather than letting the narrative get away from us and people being like, oh my God, look at Ethereum deleting history now. You're going to get rugged after a month if you don't save your data. That's not how it works at all. But that's the FUD that's going to be put out there. So I think we need to get ahead of that because it's definitely going to ramp up. And I also think that FUD is not going to be that big of a deal, and no one's really going to care about it because everyone's going to be like, well, this is really silly FUD. This is even dumber than the Shapella FUD. So let's just, mostly ignore it and just correct it where it needs correcting. Because, I often get people telling me that, why do you bother, right? Why do you bother correcting this misinformation? It's just crazy people saying this stuff. No one listens to them anyway. But that's not true, because these people have a very big reach, some of them. Like, to take an example here of someone that I really think does a lot of damage to Ethereum is Lynn Alden. She is considered a respected and intelligent voice in the macro community, right? In the TradFi community. Now, she doesn't, like, outside of Bitcoin, she does not pay attention to anything else going on in crypto. And because of that, she either willfully or kind of like unknowingly spreads some of the worst FUD to a really large crowd. So for example, she said the other day that Ethereum has on-chain governance because it's proof of stake, which is completely factually incorrect. Like, there's not about a matter of opinion here. It's about the fact that that's literally incorrect. Ethereum does not have on-chain governance. There is no token holder voting for Ethereum, for the Ethereum core protocol. So saying that and spreading it out to an audience of, obviously there's crypto people who follow her, but there's a lot of macro and TradFi people who follow her as well, puts out this information that is just completely incorrect. That's what really gets to me, is when I see that and I'm like, wow, this sucks so much. This person has so much reach and they're literally spreading lies and essentially propaganda to their followers. So I will keep fighting the misinformation because of this. I'm not going to stop. I think that at the end of the day, there are plenty of people that are going to be misled by these sorts of things, and I would like to do my part to make sure that that I can educate them and that I can kind of guide them back into the truth, so to speak, rather than getting lost down the rabbit hole of FUD and propaganda, which unfortunately this industry is full of. But I think if we keep fighting, we can strengthen Ethereum's narrative, strengthen the community that Ethereum has, and then we can get like an army of FUD fighters going, which we already have a lot better than we did even a couple of years ago, but we're going to have to keep strengthening that, I believe. But anyway, on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.